at this point anyway. With me on the program now, Labor MP Andrew Leigh here in the Canberra studio. Good morning, Andrew.
Morning, Kieran.
And in Melbourne, Liberal MP Kelly O'Dwyer. Good to see you, Kelly, and I'll be with you in just a moment. I do want to ask Andrew, first of all, about the government's position on this. We're seeing independent after independent say that they don't think Peter Slipper should return to the job until all of the allegations have been cleared. The government has to accept the reality of that, doesn't it, at some point, that he won't be back anytime soon?
Well, Kieran, the fundamental principle that underlines all of this is the notion of the presumption of innocence. That protects Mr Slipper as it protects you or me. Any of us could have false claims made against us, and a presumption of innocence is the right presumption to have. Certainly we've had examples in the past in which Howard government ministers, including Michael Wooldridge, Malcolm Turnbull, had civil claims brought against them and continue to serve.
But you know as well as I do that with Andrew Wilkie and now Tony Windsor, likely Rob Oakeshott as well, saying that they want not just the criminal claims but the civil claims resolved, that this is going to be months and months, and you don't have the numbers on the floor to have the support for the Speaker.
Well, Kieran, their comments are a matter for them. What I can tell you is the issue of principle. There is currently a Liberal Party senator facing civil claims who is continuing to serve on no less than 4 parliamentary committees. It is appropriate in these instances when
that's a senator who a lot of people wouldn't know. This is the Speaker of the Parliament. As Tony Windsor, you heard him say it there, it's about the position and respect for the position.
Well, Kieran, let's just take a simple example. Imagine that you bring against me a defamation claim. Does that automatically mean that I have to step down from parliamentary committees? That would seem a very strange state of affairs if I could force Kelly O'Dwyer to step down from her spots in parliamentary committees just by bringing a defamation suit against her, a civil case. I don't think that is a tenable position to continue.
Let's go to Kelly O'Dwyer then to respond to that. Kelly, it seems that the opposition does have the numbers now to preclude any return of Peter Slipper anytime soon, certainly before the budget.
Well, it's very interesting listening to what Andrew had to say just now, and I think, with all due respect, Kieran, he didn't actually answer your question. He slipped and slid right around the question as to whether he thinks it's appropriate for Peter Slipper to be returned to the job. Peter Slipper, of course, occupies a very, very sensitive very sensitive job as Speaker of the House of Representatives. And I know that Andrew is somebody who does have moral character, which is why I think he didn't want to actually answer that question. He's somebody who I'm sure is as disappointed as we are in the lack of the Prime Minister's leadership on this issue. I'm sure he's just as disappointed by the fact that this Parliament and this government has been plagued by sleaze and dishonesty and incompetence. And I'm sure that he would be the last person to defend it, as he refused to today.
There is some suggestion this morning that Patrick Secker, one of your colleagues, Kelly, lost a pre-selection last month. He's the Liberal member for Barker in South Australia, that he might think about filling the vacancy if Peter Slipper doesn't return to the speakership. What do you make of those reports this morning?
Well, look, this is speculation, Kieran, and I know Patrick Secker. Patrick Secker is one of our whips in the House of Representatives. He's a very honourable person. I'm sure that he wouldn't be taking a job from the worst Prime Minister in our history. I'm sure that he would not want to be propping up what is the worst government that we have seen. So I'm sure that those reports are completely and utterly inaccurate.
Would the government be looking to recruit another turncoat, Andrew?
Kieran, let's be clear as to why Mr Slipper was originally took the position of Speaker. That was because that gave us a better working majority in the House of Representatives, which then allowed us to pass important reforms, putting a price on carbon pollution, the minerals resource rent tax, taking away the private health insurance rebate from millionaires and billionaires, so that money could be better spent.
You would look at another Liberal if there was someone going to defend.
These are speculations that are well ahead of us, Kieran, but I think it is important to recognise the context in which things happened last year and to recognise the importance of a government having a strong working majority. Okay. If you listen to Kelly, you think we're a locust plague away from the next revelation and we can only be saved by the second coming of the Howard government. But really, this is an issue about trying to put in place long-term reforms for the future of Australia.
The problem is, though, the working majority is undermined by the perception, Andrew, and the Craig Thompson matter now. His lawyers calling for the Senate report into the HSU to be kept secret. Initially, Mr. Thompson had wanted it released. Now his lawyers saying that it shouldn't be. This is more confusion around that other scandal that's plagued the government.
Kieran, you can take up detailed matters about Craig Thompson with him. Certainly what I will say is that people are entitled to the presumption of innocence. It is extremely easy to come on TV and throw mud. We've seen plenty of that on recent days, but I think it is the wrong thing for people in public life to do.
Okay, let's get Kelly's thoughts on this. I don't want to get through a couple of other issues, so briefly, Kelly, if you could.
Well, look, I again feel very sorry for Andrew, who has to come on and defend the indefensible here. Of course, we shouldn't be talking about the sleaze and corruption scandals surrounding the HSU and Craig Thompson, and the fact that the Prime Minister has not demonstrated leadership on him and on his position in the Parliament. Instead, we should be talking about the big issues. I mean, we should be talking about the fact that Labor are about to deliver, most probably, a budget that has got a wafer-thin surplus that, of course, is one that is incredibly fictitious, given that they have been cooking the books when you look at some of the money that has been reallocated across the forward years and the money that has been brought forward as well. The Clean Energy Fund is one example of that.
Do you think that the migrant intake, as reported in the West Australian today, apparently Treasurer Swan, going to increase the skilled migration intake by at least 5,000, according to the West? What do you make of that, Kelly? We've got a couple of minutes left. If you can give me your thoughts on that, and then I'll come back to Andrew on that issue.
Well, look, skilled migration has been incredibly important to growing our economy. And I suppose the question, though, that Wayne Swan has to answer here is, why does he have the need to bring in additional skilled migrants? One of the big questions, I suppose, for him is, have their changes to the Fair Work Act made it more difficult for Australian companies to employ Australians?
There is this issue of the two-speed economy, where the skill shortages remain. What about freeing up or talking about the reform that Kelly's referring to there, allowing workers to move around more freely?
Well, Kieran, it's absolutely important that we improve the skills of Australian workers. That's why we've invested in things like trades training centres, why we're focused on skilling up more apprentices. Education spending has increased substantially under this government, and we're getting quality outcomes to show for that. I've certainly seen the speculation around on the migration intake, one of the many bits of speculation, I'm sure, before Budget Day. It's true that migrants have played an extraordinarily valuable role in modern Australia and will continue to do so in the future.
And it's true that we've got this two-speed economy where there are still worker shortages in the boom, whereas struggling parts on the east coast have a very different story.
Well, it's a multi-speed economy, Kieran. You've got tradable sectors which are benefiting from high prices, tradable sectors which are struggling with a high dollar, and then a very large non-tradable sector which is experiencing largely changes in their import prices and isn't particularly affected by what they sell. All of that is factors we're taking into account in our investment. Okay. Part of the mining tax is to put resources back into those mineral resource-rich regions.
Andrew Leigh, Kelly O'Dwyer, we're out of time. I appreciate that this morning. Good to see you both.
Thanks, Andrew.
After the break, we're going to cross to Washington for the latest in the presidential race, so don't go anywhere.